It's the long-awaited game animation explanation. Hello and welcome to my channel, The Danish Readaholic. My name is Silka and today I'm going to be explaining all the rules and everything about my TBR game. This is just going to be like a cozy video. So I'm in my cozy sweater, I made myself some iced coffee, and we're just gonna get into it. So for those of you who don't know, I have a TBR game called the animation game. I tend to switch between calling it the game of animation and the animation game, but the animation game is the official title because that's what's on the board. It's the same thing, whether I say one or the other. So I think what I'm gonna do is go through the rules, then go through the board, then go through the cards. And I have 180 cards. And we're gonna go through them all. So each month I have to do 5 rolls on the board. I then have to, of course, move accordingly to what I land on. I'm currently using an 8-sided die, but I might change that up to a 10-sided, like a D, is it called D10? So a D8 is what I'm currently using. I think I might try using a D10 for like a couple of months, simply because I did make the path to my goal longer, so it will take longer, and I think using a 10-sided would be good. For every book that I don't finish, I have to move 1 space back. This is to make like a consequence, but not a consequence that is so horrible that it will push me to reading when I'm not feeling like reading, you know? Because that is unhealthy and will make reading a little bit more of a chore, which is also something that I'm this year focusing on not having it feel like. I'm not allowed to double up on prompts, so if I have 2 prompts that would fit perfectly for one book, I cannot use it for both. So that automatically sets every single month at like 5 books. When I play this game, I am on a book buying ban, so I'm not allowed to buy any books unless the board allows me. There's a few exceptions to the rule. Actually, there's only one. I mean, if I get a gift card, I'm allowed to use it. And also the Fairy Loot Special Edition, simply because they are only on sale for a limited time, and if there's anything that I feel like I need, then I will allow myself to buy that. But that's the only exceptions to the book buying ban. Then I have a rule that I introduced like somewhat in the middle of doing my game last time, so it's actually not in the original video about the rules, and that is that if I start a book but don't finish it, whether or not it counts as a, I don't want to say a fail, but an unread book or a read book is how far I've gotten in it. If it is under halfway, I will count it as an unread book, but I'm allowed to pick it for the game that month. So let's say I read Sea Sparrow. It was just there, I could see it. I read Sea Sparrow, I start in February. I get to 30%, but I want to continue it for next month. And then in March, I get a prompt that would be perfect for Sea Sparrow. Let's say there's an animal in the title, Sparrow. So then I can repick it for that prompt and then continue the book. And it would count as a read book in March when I finish it. If I get to, let's use Sea Sparrow again. If I get to 60%, I cannot pick it for the animal in the title prompt because I'm over halfway, and then count it as a read book in the game, not in my stats, but just in the game, so that I don't have to move a space back. And by doing that, I then am not allowed to repick that book for another prompt in the following month. I have to read it on top of the 5 that I have to pick in the game. Does it make sense? I hope I explained it in a way that it made sense. I'm also allowed to change the book throughout the month. I am not allowed to change the prompt. So if there's one book that, for example, I actually did it this month. I don't know if I'll have time to read it, but hopefully. I had a prompt that was monsters, and I had originally picked Our Violent Ends, I think, for that. And then I got Cage of Dreams, just a sequel to City of Nightmares, and I really want to read that, and I feel like monsters are more present in that than they are in Our Violent Ends or Our Violent Delights. So I changed it up I'm still not sure I'll get to it because my reading has been slow this month. But I mean, we're not done yet. That was actually the rules. Kind of. I don't think that there's anything more that I need to say. So let's get into the board. It looks like this. I am quickly gonna go through all of the tiles or all of the spaces that you can land on. Not a lot has changed since the last time, but then again, there may be a couple of new faces here on my channel that haven't seen the original video, so I'm gonna go through everything all over so that you know what the game is about. We start off at the tile that says start, obviously. Then the first tile that we get to is a DreamWorks tile that is one of the 5, you heard right, one of the 5 card categories. DreamWorks is the one that represents all of the DreamWorks movies, you guessed it. What I have to do then is just pick the first card in the pile from the DreamWorks pile. Next up we have Disney. It's the same thing. Take the top card from the Disney pile and then find a book that fits that prompt. The others is the same. You know the drill by now. And then we also have Barbie. Now you might have noticed that I said 5 card piles. That's because instead of intimidating, I have a villain pile. Now why do I have this? I don't know. I wanted to add a little bit more oomph to it. So this is actually primarily negative prompts, or prompts that I find negative. I need to try and rephrase it in a way, but it's either genres that are out of my comfort zone or challenges that may be annoying or like things that I need to do. So it's not what I'm aiming to get, but like you'll understand when you see the cards. Now in between some of the normal card tiles, there is a picture of a castle. Some of you might already know that this means I will get a free pick, but because this picture of this specific castle is from a Barbie movie, I will get free pick from the Barbie pile. The pictures that I have is the castle from Magic of the Pegasus, the flower field from Fairytopia, the dance pavilion from 12 Dancing Princesses. I have the Swan Lake from Swan Lake, and I have the Diamond Castle from the Diamond Castle. So whenever I land of those, I take the pile with Barbie cards and then go through them and pick the ones that I want, or the one that I want. Next up, we have a tile that says jar, and that means that I have to pick a book from my jar, and there's just like, I just have to pick a note and read that book. If it's a book that I've already read, I need to take that out and then take a new card. So like I'll keep going until I find a book that I haven't read. Then we actually get to another one that I call a picture prompt. This one is DreamWorks, and we have the burning bush from Prince of Egypt. We have to do the same thing here, take the DreamWorks pile and find a prompt that I want to do this month. What else do we have from DreamWorks? We have El Dorado from Road to El Dorado, Syracuse from Sinbad, The Swamp from Shrek. Then we have the whale wash from Shark Tale. The next one we get to is something that is just called free pick. This is similar to the picture prompts, but in this one I get to go through all of the piles and pick whatever I like. So that's a very, very good one to land on. Next to it, we have another picture prompt. This one is from Robots. I actually don't know or don't remember what the place is called. It's been so long since I've seen the movie. Maybe I should watch it today. But this is from the category others, so I'll have to go through the others pile to find a prompt that I want to read. Of other pictures that I have from others, we have the house from Despicable Me, we have Alfea from Winx, we have the ballroom from Anastasia, and finally we have the Pink Palace from Coraline. The next tile that we land on that I haven't talked about yet is the Treat Yourself. This is a tile that will allow me to buy a maximum of 3 books or spend a maximum of 500, which is 59 pounds or 81 US dollars. I know book prices in the UK and the US are very cheap compared to Denmark, but 3 books could easily surpass this, honestly. It all depends on the books. So that is why I have both a price limit and also a like amount limit, but I'm probably gonna put the price limit a little bit down just because we'll see how well it fits. The next tile that we land on is 1 year, which kind of, I think it's kind of self-explanatory. It's any book that I've had for over a year. And I think I have a good, like, somewhat understanding of which books it is, but I also tend to just go through like my videos and see like, okay, a year ago, did I have this? Then we also have a tile that's just called skip. Once again, kind of self-explanatory. In this one, I have to skip that round, so it brings the total of books that I need to read down to 4, which is good because sometimes I might need that. I think the final prompt that I have to talk about is the picture prompt for Disney, and the pictures that I have for that is Atlantis. I have the hill from Nightmare Before Christmas. I have the Emperor's Palace from Mulan. I have Notre Dame from Hunchback of Notre Dame, or off the Hunchback of Notre Dame, not off Notre Dame. It's based on that for a moment. And then I have Elsa's Ice Palace from Frozen. And then when I get to the end, I have to land on this castle to win, and then I am allowed to buy, I think I changed it to 10 books. And also when I get to the end, as you might have seen in some of the videos from past, like from the past version of the game where I won, I will then pick the top card from every single pile, probably also the villain pile, and then pick between them. All right, it is time. I will now go through all of the cards. We're gonna start off with Barbie. Alexa from the Diamond Castle, and the prompt is color of previous pick present. Alexa from the Secret Door, and this is to finish a series. And Elise from Princess and the Pauper, and that is to read a book that has pink on the cover. Annika from Magic of the Pegasus, and that is to read a book that has enemies to lovers. Aramina from the Three Musketeers, and that is to read a book with a character that feels out of their element, or that is out of their element. Doesn't have to be a main character. Barbie from Life of the Dream House, or just Barbie in general, and that is a shiny cover. Blair from Princess Charm School, and that is to read a book that features a magical school. Brietta from Magic of the Pegasus, and that is to read a book that is gifted. Carlita from Swan Lake, and that is to have a friend pick a book. Clara from The Nutcracker, and that is to read a book that features a character with a hidden identity. Once again, doesn't have to be the main character. Corinne, and for this I need to play Spin the Bottle. So the Spin the Bottle TBR game is Sid's over from Sid Bookworm, and for this I need to just create a tiny version of her TBR game. Courtney from Rock and Royals, and that is Mood Read. If I have done everything correctly, there should be a mood read in every single pile. Delia from the 12 Dancing Princesses, and that is green on the cover. Derek from 12 Dancing Princesses, and that is D20. For this, I will need to make a list of 20 books and then roll a D20 and then pick the book that is on there. Dominic from Princess and the Pauper, and that is to read a book that has a crown on the cover. Edeline from 12 Dancing Princesses, and that is to read a book that has flowers on the cover. Elena from Fairytopia, and that is to read a book with the time of day in the title. Eric from The Nutcracker, and that is to read a book by a non-American author. Erica from Princess and the Pauper, and that is to read a book that has blue on the cover. The Fairy Queen from Swan Lake, and that is to read a book that features magic. Fallon from the 12 Dancing Princesses. Can you guess what my favorite Barbie movie is? But that is a prompt that allows me to buy a book. One single book. Genevieve from the 12 Dancing Princesses, and that is a book that is like a top 10 prediction. So one that I think will be in my best books of 2024. Isla, and that is to read a book that matches my current outfit. Well, not this current, but whenever it comes up, the outfit that I'm wearing that day. Ivan, and that is to read a middle grade. Julian, and that is to read a book where I think my next book boyfriend will appear. Kristen from The Pink Shoes, and that is a book number generator where I sorted by author. I don't remember if I have shown you my book log, but I do have this big ass Excel file with all of the books that I own in there, and then for this I will sort it by author, last name, because that's the way that the authors are put into that. And then I will go to, like, just find a number generator and then generate a random number. Leanna from Diamond Castle, and that is a book where the main character goes on a quest. Leela from Swan Lake, and that is a book that has a great first line. Lumina from Pearl Princess, and that is an underrated book. Mariposa, and that is Wings on the cover. Melody, and that is an A to Z letter generator, author, first name. Malia, and this one, there has to be an ordinal determiner in the title. Odette from Swan Lake, and that is to read a book that features the chosen one trope. Penelope from Rapunzel, and that is to read a book that has a light source on the cover. Rapunzel from Rapunzel, and that is to read a retelling. Raquel, and that is a book number generator, but this time it is sorted by publication year. Renee from Three Musketeers, and that is a book that has a weapon on the cover. Rosella from Island Princess, and that is a book that features an orphan or someone who is away from their parents. Serafina, and that is to find a book that starts with the first letter of my first name. Vivica from The Three Musketeers, and that is to read a book that's signed. And the final Barbie prompt is Wolfie, and that is a book that is published in 2021. Now we are doing the Disney pile. First up, we have Ellen Adale from Robin Hood, and that is to continue a series. Anna from Frozen, and that is to read a book that features sisters as main characters. Ariel from The Little Mermaid, and that is to read a book by a Danish author. Aurora from Sleeping Beauty, and that is to find a book where the spine and the cover are different colors. Mowgli and Baloo, this was just a cute one that I kind of drew before deciding that it was going to be characters instead, and I didn't want to redo these separate, so they got to be together. And that is an A to Z letter generator, and then we need to find a title. Beast, and that is to read a book that has an ampersand on the cover. Belle from Beauty and the Beast, which is to read a book that has a person in the title. This can be a specific name, but it can also be like king, queen, so on and so forth. Cinderella from Cinderella, and that is to read a book that has an adaptation. Jolly from Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is to do a poll pick. Elsa from Frozen, and for this I need to read a polar fantasy. Esmeralda from Hunchback of Notre Dame, and this need to be a 5-star prediction. Eugene from Tangled, and for this I need to find a new to me author. Fawn from the Disney Fairies, and that is to have my best friend Caitlin pick a book. Hercules from Hercules, and for this one I need to find a book that starts with the first letter of my middle name. Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas. For this one I need to find a book that has a black cover. Kenai and Coda, actually the other way around, Coda and Kenai from Brother Bear, and for this I need to find a book that features the found family trope. Next up we have Kita from Atlantis, and for this I need to read the first book in a series. Lilo and Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, and for this, I'm going to use a book number generator once again, but sorted by page count. Maid Marian from Robin Hood, and this one is a mood read. Mary Poppins, which is to read a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious book, and that can mean whatever the hell I want it to mean. It's probably just a book that I'm super excited for. Megara or Megara, I say Megara, but that's because I think that's closer to how they say her name in Danish. I don't know. Megara, the queen. Slay queen. And that is to read a book that features mythological elements. Merida from Brave, and that is to have my very good friend Jem pick a book from Bookish Gems. Go check her out. Milo from Atlantis, and that is to read a book that features a gemstone on the cover. Or in the title. I could also work with that. Mirabelle from Encanto, and that is to read a book where the main character doesn't have magic. Moana, and that is to read a book that features little to no romance. Mulan from Mulan, and that is to read a book that has a POC author. Mushu from Mulan, and that is to do a feed scroll. That can be on Goodreads, it can be on Instagram, it can be on whatever I feel like doing that day. Simba and Nala, and that is to read a book that features animals on the cover. Nani from Lilo and Stitch, and that is to read a book that has a female protagonist. Naveen and Tiana from Princess and the Frog, and that is to read a paperback. Phoebus from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that is to read a book that features humans. Pocahontas, and that is to read a book that has a POC main character. Quasimodo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that is to read a book that has a symbol on the cover. Rapunzel from Tangled, and that is to read a book with foiling on the cover. Robin Hood from Robin Hood, and that is to do the M&M's TBR. The M&M's TBR are done over at Current Chapter, and it's one of my favorite TBRs. Also, it requires eating candy. I will definitely do that. Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas, and that is to read a book that fits the current season. Shang from Mulan, and that is to read a hardback. Snow White from Snow White, and that is to read a book that has yellow on the cover. Tinkerbell from, once again, like the Disney fairies. And for this, I need to read a book that features fairies or fae. Vidya, once again from the Disney fairies, and that is to read like a fast read. Finally, for the Disney prompts, we have Serena, once again from the Disney fairies, and that is to read a book that has a pretty cover. Moving on, we have the DreamWorks pile. We start off strong with Alex from Madagascar, and that is to read a book that features one word that is the same as the previous pick. Angie from Shark Tale, and that is to read a book that will mess with my emotions. Asenat from Joseph, King of Dreams, and that is to read a desert fantasy. Barry from B-Movie, and that is to read a book that has an animal in the title. Donkey from Shrek, and that is to read a book that has a one-word title. E. Easter Bunnymund from The Rise of the Guardians, and that is to read a book that I was meant to read last year. And there's a lot of those. Fiona from Shrek, and that is to read a book that features royalty. Ginger from Chicken Run, and that is a mood read. Hammy from Over the Hedge, and that is to read a book that has both a person and an animal on the cover. Then we have Hiccup from How to Train Your Dragon, and that is to read a book that has a disability or a mental health rep. Jack Frost from Rise of the Guardians, and that is to read a book that has snow, ice, or frost on the cover, or other things in that area. Joseph from Joseph, King of Dreams, and that is to read a book that features heavy themes. Kale from Sinbad, The Legend of the Seven Seas, and that is to read a book from my favorite genre. Lenny from Shark Tale, and that is to do a random prompt wheel. So the wheel that I'm talking about is from tbr.heyreader.me, and I used it before when I thought that I was gonna get my game ready, but then I wasn't gonna get it ready, and then I went back to my old version of the game. Basically, it's a spin a wheel that gives me a random prompt, and I have not made any of the prompts for that. Marina from Sinbad, The Legend of the Seven Seas, and that is to read a book that features a favorite setting of mine. Marty from Madagascar, and that is to read a book that has 300 pages or less. Miguel from Road to El Dorado, and that is a random book generator. It's basically where I randomly generate a book from my shelves. So I will first find a shelf by randomly generating that, and then finding a book on that by, number generating. Miriam from Prince of Egypt, and that is to read a book set in a different country than mine. Moses from Prince of Egypt, and that is to read a book that has a character holding something on the front cover. Nicholas St. North from Rise of the Guardians, and that is to read a book that was published in 2022. Oscar from Shark Tale, and that is to read a book that features a male protagonist. Poe from Kung Fu Panda, and that is to read a book that I've gotten in a subscription box. Proteus? I actually don't know how to pronounce that in English. I should watch the movie in English. From Sinbad, The Legend of the Seven Seas, and that is to read a book that features a love triangle. Puss in Boots from, both Puss in Boots but also Shrek, and that is to randomly color generate a color and then pick a book based on that. Rain from Spirit, and that is to read a book that has a weather-related word in the title. Rita from Flushed Away, and that is to read a book that features a hidden world. RJ from Over the Hedge, and that is to read a book that has brown on the cover. Rocky from Chicken Run, and that is to read a book that's between 450 and 500 pages. Roddy from Flushed Away, and that is to read a book that has an article determiner in the cover. No, in the title. Sandman from Rise of the Guardians, and that is to read a book that has orange on the cover. Shrek from Shrek, and that is to read a book that features a trial or a competition. Sinbad from Sinbad, the Legend of the Seven Seas, and that is to read a fantasy. Spirit from Spirit, and that is to use a book number generator once again, but this time we sort it by genre. Sykes from Shark Tale, and that is to do Ocean Read's TBR game. I'll link her down below. Tigress from Kung Fu Panda, and that is to read a book that has stencil sprayed edges. Toothiana from Rise of the Guardians, and that is to read a standalone. Toothless, and that is to read a book that's younger than you, or younger than me. Tulio from Road to El Dorado, and that is to read a book that has a map. Sephora from Prince of Egypt, and that is to read a book that is a new release. Vern from Over the Hedge, and that is to use a publication year generator and then pick a book based on that. The final prompt in the DreamWorks pile is Viper, and that is to read a book that has a preposition in the title. Then we have the others pile. We have Alex from Totally Spies, and that is to read a book that has 3 or less people on the cover. Anastasia from Anastasia, and that is to read a book where the first letter is the same as the previous pick. Apple White from Ever After High, and that is to read a book that has a color in the title. Ben 10 from Ben 10, and that is to read a book that features monsters. Bloom from Winx Club, and that is to read a book that will make you happy. Claudine Wolf from Monster High, and that is to read a book that starts with the first letter of my last name. Cleo Denial, and that is to read a book that features a morally grey main character. Chloe from Bratz, and that is a mood read. Clover from Totally Spies, and that is to read a book that was published between 2011 and 2015. Coraline from Coraline, and that is to read a book that I'm excited about. Daphne from Scooby-Doo, and that is to read a book that has been independently published or, you know, self-published. Dimitri from Anastasia, and that is to read a book that features my favorite trope. Draculaura from Monster High, and that is to read a book that has a cute cover. Emily from Corpse Bride, and that is to read a book that has a spooky cover. Eris from God School, which is a YouTube series that I recommend, and that is to read a book that features gods or goddesses. Fender from Robots, and that is to do an A to Z letter generator by the author last name. Flora from Winx Club, and that is to read a book that is popular or hyped. Frankenstein from Monster High, and that is to do a round of Play Your TBR Right. That is Gavin's TBR game from, oh, what's his new name? Gavin Reads a Lot? How to Train Your Gavin, but that's not his new username. I can't remember it. Ghost Freak from Ben 10, and that is to read a book that has no characters whatsoever on the cover. No animals, no nothing. Gwen from Ben 10, and that is to play Wordle and then pick a book based on that. Jade from Bratz, and that is to read a book that was published in or after 2020. Layla from Winx Club, and that is to read a book that has sprayed edges. Lissy Hearts from Ever After High, and that is to read a book that features unlikely friends. Madeline Hatter, also from Ever After High, and that is to read one of my Disney Twisted Tales. Musa from Winx Club, and that is to read a book that has 3 or more people on the cover. Odette from Swan Princess, and that is to read a book that has a bird on the cover. Raven Queen from Ever After High, and that is to read a book that has multiple POV. Raven from Teen Titans Go, that is to read a book that has a possessive determiner in the title. Rodney from Robots, and that is a book number generator sorted by title. Sam from Totally Spies, and that is the most recent addition to my shelf, or a recent addition. It doesn't have to be the newest one, but a recent addition to my shelves. Sasha from Bratz, and that is a random prompt generator also from tbr.heyreader.me. Scooby-Doo, and that is from Scooby-Doo, and that is a book that was published before 2010. Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, and that is also a possessive determiner. Oh my god, that's a mistake. Oh well, then I have 2 books, or 2 cards that will be a possessive determiner. Starfire, and that is to a random shelf generator. Last one, I think it was Miguel, it was a random book, but this one I just have to pick a shelf, and then I can pick whatever book from that shelf. Stella from Winx Club, and that is to read a book that has an opulent cover. Tekna, also from Winx Club, and that is to read a book that has purple on the cover. The Cat from Coraline, and that is to read a book that has a demonstrative determiner in the title. Victor from Corpse Bride, and that is to read a book with a protagonist that's different from me in one way or the other. Victoria, also from Corpse Bride, and that is to read a YA. Accelerate from Ben 10, and that is to read a book that has a number in the title. And finally, we have Yasmin, and that is to read a book that has a face on the cover. Alright, so those were all, let's call it the regular prompts. Now we're gonna get into the villains. First up, we have Barkis Bittern from Corpse Bride, and that is to read a book that I'm not that excited about. Captain Hook from Peter Pan, and that is to read a book that's older than me. Dr. Facilier from Princess and the Frog, and that is to read a nonfiction. Duchess Rowena from The 12 Dancing Princesses, and that is to read a book that's out of my comfort zone. Eris from Sinbad, and that is to read a book that will self-destruct. This is not from my self-destruct list. It is just a book that I pick that will self-destruct if I don't read it that month. Fairy Godmother, and that is to pick any prompt I want, but I need to choose 2 books, so that will bring my total up to 6 books that month. Claude Frollo from A Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that is to read a classic. Gothel from Rapunzel, and that is to read the lowest rated book on my TBR. Lord Farquaad, and that is to restart the round, so I move back to the space where I started out, and then I need to pick all the books again. Well, I actually need to go roll again and everything, so everything will be kind of like reset, and the prompts that I had gotten will be taken out of that round, so I need, like, I'll gonna get new cards for whatever I land on. Preminger from Princess and the Pauper, and that is to choose any book, but I need to add 1 roll, also bringing my total book count up to 6. Ramses from Prince of Egypt, and that is to choose any book, but add 2 rolls, bringing my total up to 7 books. Rasputin from Anastasia, and that is to read a historical fiction. Rothbard from Swan Lake, and that is to pick a book from my self-destruct list. Shan Yu from Mulan, and that is to read a book that is 500 plus pages. The Beldam from Coraline, and that is to choose any book, but add 3 rolls, bringing my total book count up to 8. And finally, I have The Tricks from Winx Club, and that is to randomize my TBR. So all of the books that I had originally picked, I need to put back and pick something else, which means I cannot pick them for this round. Oh my god. I have currently been filming for 1 hour and 7 minutes just doing this, but it was so much fun just going through all of it. I did notice 1 error though, and I'm just gonna live with it and say, oh well, fuck that. Then there's 2 cards that have possessive determiner. It is what it is. Honestly, I'm not mad about it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what your favorite card is. Like, both, I want to know which one is like your favorite artwork style, and which one is your favorite prompt, and which one are you most excited to see being used. If you just want to let me know that you're here but don't know what to comment, you can always leave a green heart. If you like this video, please hit the like icon, and if you want to see more of my bookish content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It will mean the world to me. And until see you next time, bye!